Welcome back to County Connection. For our final segment, we are going to be talking about floodplains and why property owners should care about that. And here to enlighten us is Robert Jacobs, Summit County Engineer. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, so Robert, your office is very involved in where floodplains are located in Summit County, particularly in the unincorporated areas, but kind of on the whole as well. So can you start off by explaining to us what is the floodplain and why we should care about it?
Yeah, I can try. It gets complicated when it comes to regulatory. Floodplain versus real floodplain, but the floodplain is essentially the area that floodwaters would rise to in what we call a 100-year event, or an event that has a 1% chance of occurring any year.
Okay. And then what kinds of implications does being located in a floodplain have for a property owner? So what should they be thinking about and concerned about, perhaps, if they're in one of these floodplain boundaries according to the Federal Emergency Management Agency?
Right.
All right.
A regulatory floodplain, I'd call that, yes.
Okay.
If they're in a regulatory floodplain, then they would be required to get flood insurance if they had a federally backed mortgage.
Okay.
And it would be mandated, they wouldn't have a choice.
All right. So there are some important financial implications then, if you are located in one of these regulatory floodplains. And so what's the process for determining the boundaries of a regulatory floodplain?
Well, the process has changed over the years. At the moment, it would be, a study would be done. We haven't done a study since 2001 that I can think of at the moment.
Okay.
That's the most recent study.
And then this is a collaboration between federal agencies and your office as well as the towns, or how does it all work?
It's generally a private engineer that's hired by either a municipality or the county, or potentially private property owners as well, to actually study the area, look at the topography and the soil types and so on and so forth, basin size, and then run a model that shows where, according to the parameters that they put in, the floodplain would extend up to, where the floodwater would rise to.
Okay. And how many properties in Summit County are located in a regulatory floodplain?
On the order of about 1,200.
Okay. And so in the early 2000s, FEMA undertook a process to make all these flood maps digital, right? To computerize them or modernize them. So what is going on with that process right now?
That process actually was a cooperative process that ended in 2011 with us adopting the new maps, the new modern maps, which were significantly more precise and exposed less accuracy than the old maps. So since 2011, we've been working through a process to revise those maps to correct errors that were made.
During that modernization process.
Exactly, during the modernization process. Nothing was remapped at that time. It was only old information brought forward to a new format.
Okay, so if there were any errors that were that made their way, or there are any errors in that process of moving from the old maps to the new map system, then now is the opportunity to identify where those errors might have been. That's exactly right. Not identifying errors in the original mapping necessarily, but errors in the transfer of data from the old format to the new format. So there were a number of errors that were identified after the process was completed, despite everybody's best efforts. And so now we're nearing the end of the process to revise those maps that were adopted in 2011, and we'll be adopting a new set of maps. Okay.
And that process is actually right now in the appeal period, which ends towards the middle of August. August 17th, I believe, is the last date for appeals to be sent to FEMA based on those new revised maps that have been issued in a preliminary format.
And so this would be a particular interest to folks who whose properties are within these floodplain hazard boundaries, and if they felt that they were incorrectly included.
That's correct.
Okay, and then so then if they did feel that was the case, that their property was incorrectly included within the regulatory floodplain, then what should they do about it?
They would need to contact my office, me generally, and I guess provide technical data that supports or shows where the error was in the translation of information from old format to the new format.
Okay. And then how do people go about taking a look at these maps themselves?
They can do it online. The county website has a link. FEMA actually created a specific map that shows where the proposed revisions will move and adjust floodplain locations.
Okay.
And there's a link to that map on our website, on the engineering department's page.
Okay, great. Let's see, if people have questions for you, how can they get in touch with you about this process?
They could email me or call me at my office. I can either give you that now, or you can find it online.
Sure, give it to us now.
Okay, my email address is robert.jacobs@summitcountyco.gov. Does that sound right?
I think that sounds right.
And my phone number is 970-668-4212.
All right, and again, so for people, the deadline in this appeal process is August 17th.
August 17th, that's right. But that being said, if they submit something that they'd like to have appealed to me on August 17th, that might be a challenge for me. So I guess I would appreciate it if they could get that information to me as soon as possible.
Okay, because that's really the appeal date for FEMA.
That's correct.
So,
that's our last date that we can submit an appeal to FEMA. And all the appeals actually have to come through my office, or if they're in a town, through their town's floodplain administrators.
Okay, so if you are so that's a good point. If you're located in one of the municipalities, then you should talk to them directly.
That's correct.
All
exactly.
Right. Okay, anything else people should be aware of on this topic, or have we covered it all?
Oh, there's probably a lot of things that would take too long to cover and be far too boring for everybody to try to listen to.
We've just stuck to the exciting stuff.
If that's what you like to call it.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Robert, for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, if your property is in the floodplain or you need to check that out, you can head to the Summit County website to do so.
Yep, I appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you. And thanks so much to those of you at home who have joined us for another episode of County Connection. We look forward to seeing you next month.